Welcome to Ace My Exams Learning. Let us get started with today's learning.
Life Sciences Grade 12, Evolution. What does evolution mean? The term evolution in general usage means a process of gradual change or development. However, in the context of biology, evolution refers specifically to the changes that occur in the characteristics of living organisms over long periods of time. These changes are usually driven by genetic variations that accumulate within populations and are passed down to successive generations. In biological terms, evolution is defined as any heritable change in the genetic makeup of a population that becomes common or fixed across generations. This means that certain genetic traits or features become more frequent in the population over time, often because they provide some survival or reproductive advantage. Evolution acts on populations, not individuals. Therefore, an individual organism does not evolve during its lifetime. Instead, changes take place in the gene pool of a population over many generations. A well-known example of evolution is the case of the peppered moth in industrialized areas. Dark-colored moths became more common because they blended in better with soot-covered trees, which helped them avoid predators, thus giving them a survival advantage. Over generations, this trait became more common in the population, clearly showing how biological evolution works. The origin of evolutionary ideas. The idea of evolution has developed slowly over many centuries and continues to grow with new scientific discoveries. The theory of evolution did not originate from a single individual or moment in time. Instead, it is the result of collective contributions of many scientists who studied how life on Earth has changed over time. Early naturalists noticed patterns in nature, such as fossil remains and similarities between different species, that could not be explained by the belief that life has always stayed the same. Over time, these observations led to testable questions, which in turn formed hypotheses. When many of these hypotheses were repeatedly supported by evidence, they formed the basis for what is now known as the scientific theory of evolution. For example, naturalists like Georges Cuvier studied rock layers and fossils and noticed that some species no longer existed. This showed that life on Earth had changed over time, rather than staying the same. These early discoveries helped scientists realize that species could go extinct and that new ones could appear. Over time, these early ideas led to more detailed explanations, such as natural selection and genetic inheritance. These concepts were later made widely known by scientists like Charles Darwin. The development of the theory of evolution shows how scientific knowledge grows over time, through continuous testing, gathering of evidence, and logical thinking. The difference between a hypothesis and a theory. A hypothesis is an educated guess or informed assumption about a specific phenomenon. It offers a possible explanation that can be tested through observation, research, and experimentation. For example, a scientist might hypothesize that a certain physical trait gives individuals in a population a better chance of surviving in a particular environment. This hypothesis is then studied to see whether the prediction holds true under different conditions. Over time, if a hypothesis is supported by repeated evidence and produces consistent results, it may contribute to the development of a scientific theory. On the other hand, a theory is a well-tested and widely accepted explanation of natural events that is supported by a large body of evidence from many different studies. For instance, the theory of evolution by natural selection, proposed by Charles Darwin, began as a hypothesis. It was later confirmed by strong and repeated evidence from fossils, genetics, anatomy, and observations in nature. Today, it is a key foundation of modern biology and helps us understand how species adapt, survive, and change over generations. Therefore, evolution is considered a scientific theory because numerous hypotheses related to it have been repeatedly tested, supported, and verified by evidence over time. Like all scientific theories, it is not static. It can be refined or updated as new discoveries and evidence emerge. Life Science Grade 12. Evidence that evolution has occurred. The concept of biological evolution is not based on assumption or speculation. Instead, it is grounded in a wide body of scientific evidence gathered over many years. This evidence comes from various scientific disciplines, including paleontology, genetics, anatomy, embryology, biogeography, and even studies of human culture. Each of these fields contributes important information that, when combined, strongly supports the idea that living organisms have changed gradually over long periods of time. Let's us look at each line of evidence in detail. 1. Fossil evidence. Fossils are the preserved remains, impressions, or traces of organisms from the geological past. These include bones, shells, leaf imprints, footprints, or even entire organisms trapped in amber or ice. Fossils serve as historical records of life on Earth, giving us direct insight into what kinds of organisms lived long ago and how they differed from modern species. Fossils are found in sedimentary rock layers, each representing a different period in Earth's history. The Paleozoic era, starting about 540 million years ago, contains some of the earliest fossils of complex life. As scientists study different layers, they uncover fossils that reflect the types of organisms that lived during each time period. This layered structure allows researchers to build a timeline of evolutionary change and better understand how life has developed and diversified over time. One of the most powerful contributions of the fossil record is that it shows a chronological sequence of life forms, documenting how species have appeared, changed, and gone extinct over millions of years. A well-known example is the fossil of Tiktaalik, a prehistoric fish that lived around 375 million years ago. This fossil is important because it has features of both fish and land-dwelling vertebrates, such as limb-like fins. It represents a transitional form that helps scientists understand how vertebrates moved from water to land. Such fossils act like snapshots of evolutionary history, capturing key stages of transformation and adaptation. Fossil evidence also helps to trace the evolutionary connection between modern humans and ancient primates, as seen in the fossil remains of early hominins, which show gradual changes in skull shape, posture, and brain size. 2. Genetic evidence. Modern molecular biology has provided strong support for the theory of evolution by demonstrating that all living organisms share the same fundamental genetic material, the DNA. This shared genetic code across diverse species is a powerful indicator of common ancestry. Similarities in DNA sequences between different species suggest that they descended from a shared evolutionary ancestor. The greater the similarity in their genetic material, the more closely related the species are, and the more recent their common ancestor is likely to be. For example, humans and chimpanzees, two closely related species, share approximately 98 to 99% of their DNA sequences, highlighting a recent shared ancestry. On the other hand, species that are more distantly related, such as humans and reptiles, show greater differences in their genetic makeup. In addition to overall DNA similarity, genetic evidence also includes the following. A. Similar gene sequences found in different species, indicating that these genes were inherited from a common ancestor. B. Shared non-functional DNA segments, often referred to as junk DNA, which do not serve a purpose, but are still present in multiple species. These sequences are remnants of genes from ancestral organisms and serve as genetic fossils. C. Similarities in chromosome structure, such as in the case of human chromosome 2, which appears to be the result of the fusion of two ancestral ape chromosomes. This structural evidence further supports the shared evolutionary relationship between humans and other primates. This molecular evidence confirms that evolution is not only observed in external physical features, but is also deeply embedded in the genetic code of all living organisms. It shows that the patterns of inheritance at the molecular level reflect the process of evolution over time, reinforcing the idea of descent with modification from a common ancestor. 3. Modifications by descent, comparative anatomy. Modifications by descent refer to the structural similarities and gradual changes in the body parts of different organisms that suggest they have evolved from a common ancestor. Over time, these shared structures have been modified to serve different functions, providing important evidence for the process of evolution. One of the most significant examples of modifications by descent can be observed through the study of homologous structures. What are homologous structures? Homologous structures are anatomical features found in different organisms that have the same basic internal structure, even though they may perform different functions in each species. These similarities in structure, despite differences in function, indicate that the organisms have a shared evolutionary origin. A well-known example of a homologous structure is the pentadactyl limb, which is a limb consisting of 5 digits. This structure is present in a wide range of vertebrates, including A. Whales, where the limb has evolved into flippers for swimming. B. Birds, where it has developed into wings for flying. C. Cats, where it forms paws for walking. D. Humans, where it becomes arms and hands for grasping and manipulation. Although these limbs perform very different functions, the internal bone arrangement, including the humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges, remains strikingly similar across species. This similarity in structure, despite the variation in use, provides compelling evidence that these species inherited the limb from a common ancestor, and that it has been modified over time to suit different environments and lifestyles. Why is this important in evolution? The presence of homologous structures supports a key concept in evolution known as descent with modification. Descent with modification refers to the process by which organisms inherit traits from a common ancestor, but those traits may be altered over time as species adapt to new environments and functions. These anatomical similarities between different species highlight how organisms have diverged from a common lineage and adapted their structures for specific survival needs, providing strong evidence for evolutionary change. 4. Cultural evidence in human evolution. Cultural evolution refers to the non-genetic transmission and development of knowledge, behavior, language, and tool use within a species. It is especially significant in the study of human evolution because it highlights characteristics that distinguish humans from other primates. Unlike biological evolution, which involves changes in genetic material, cultural evolution is based on learned behaviors passed from one generation to the next. This form of evolution plays a vital role in understanding how early human societies functioned, communicated, and developed over time. Cultural evidence includes a range of human activities and artifacts that reflect the intellectual and social development of early humans. One major form of cultural evidence is the use of tools and weapons. The gradual development and improvement of stone tools over time demonstrate increased cognitive ability and manual dexterity. The ability to create and refine tools indicates problem-solving skills, planning, and fine motor control. Fossil evidence shows that early human ancestors used tools as far back as 2.6 million years ago. These findings offer important insight into early human behavior and survival strategies. Another key component of cultural evidence is art and symbolic objects. Discoveries such as cave paintings, decorative items like beads and jewelry, and deliberate burial practices reveal that early humans were capable of abstract thought and symbolic expression. These artifacts indicate the presence of complex ideas, self-awareness, spirituality, and culture. The existence of such symbolic behavior is unique to humans and marks a major advancement in human cognitive development. Language and communication also form a crucial part of cultural evolution, although language itself does not fossilize. However, scientists infer the ability for speech and structured communication through fossil evidence, particularly by examining the size and structure of the brain and the shape of the skull and vocal tract. Larger brain size and skull features associated with speech suggest that early humans had the capacity for verbal communication. The development of language would have enabled better cooperation, teaching, and sharing of knowledge within groups, further accelerating cultural development. These forms of evidence reflect how human beings evolved not just biologically, but socially and intellectually, setting them apart from other primates. 5. Biogeography. Biogeography is the study of the geographic distribution of species over space and time. It provides important evidence for evolution by showing how living organisms have changed and diversified in different regions of the world. This variation often occurs due to differences in environmental conditions and isolation of populations. One of the most compelling examples of biogeographical evidence for evolution comes from island species, where geographic isolation has led to unique adaptations. A well-known case is Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Islands. These birds all descended from a common ancestral species, but as they spread to different islands, they encountered different types of food. Over time, natural selection favored individuals with beak shapes best suited to the available food sources on each island. This led to the evolution of different beak sizes and shapes, even though the birds are closely related. Biogeography also helps explain patterns in species distribution on a global scale, particularly through the concepts of continental drift and plate tectonics. As continents moved apart over millions of years, populations of certain species were separated and exposed to different environments. This geographical isolation led to the development of new species through the process of speciation. For example, kangaroos are native only to Australia, and lemurs are found only in Madagascar. These animals evolved in isolation on their respective continents and islands, leading to unique characteristics not found in similar species elsewhere. The absence of these species on other continents, despite the presence of suitable habitats, supports the idea that they evolved after the landmasses had already separated. Therefore, biogeography supports the theory of evolution by demonstrating that the distribution of species across the world is not random, but rather the result of evolutionary history, environmental adaptation, and long-term geographic isolation. This highlights how natural selection, acting in different environments, has led to the development of distinct species over time.
To access more learning and exam preparation materials, go to www.acemyexams.coza. This link is also in the video description below. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to subscribe and be the first to know when we upload new videos.